8 reasons why most men over 40 can't lose fat. Have you ever felt that your belly fat just won't go away? And worse, I'm sure someone has told you that you just need to do more AB exercises, or that you're not doing them with the right technique, as if the problem was how you do your crunches. Yes, this is a common thought. Wrong, but common. And here we need to make something clear. Spot reduction through isolated exercises doesn't exist. This has been studied and proven. What you really need to do is remove that layer of fat, and this depends much more on a general context of caloric balance, metabolism, hormones, and lifestyle habits than on how many sets of AB exercises you do per week. That's why today you'll see 8 mistakes that most men over 40 are making that prevent that annoying fat from disappearing once and for all, and how to fix it. Before we start, tell me in the comments your name and how long you've been training. Reason number 1, not knowing how to create a caloric deficit. The caloric deficit is simply the number 1 law for anyone who wants to lose weight and lose fat. Just like if you spend less than you earn, you have money left over. If you burn more calories than you consume, your body needs to get energy from somewhere. And that place is your fat storage. And that's where the problem lies. Many people know they need a caloric deficit, but they don't know how to execute it the right way. Most men over 40 don't even know how many calories they're consuming daily, or worse, they eat a different amount each day without planned meals and schedules. It's like trying to drive to a destination without knowing where you are and without having a map. It simply doesn't work. What makes this problem particularly challenging is that our metabolism naturally slows down with age. By the time you're 40, you've already lost about 3 to 5% of your muscle mass if you don't train regularly, which means your body burns fewer calories at rest. This requires even more careful planning of your caloric deficit. You need to have a structured diet, with planned meals, and ideally weigh your food to have a real notion of portions. The ideal deficit for men over 40 is moderate, about 10 to 20% below your daily requirement. A very aggressive deficit can slow down your metabolism even more and lead to muscle mass loss, which is exactly what you don't want. How to do this in practice? First, calculate your basal metabolic rate using one of the many online calculators available. Multiply this number by your physical activity level to get your daily caloric needs. Then, reduce this number by 10 to 20% to create your deficit. A common mistake I see many people make is trying to create a deficit just by drastically reducing food intake without considering food quality. This often leads to nutritional deficiencies and energy drops, making the weight loss process unsustainable. Reason number 2, not doing strength training with compound exercises. When it comes to fat loss, many men over 40 still believe that the solution lies in endless hours of cardio. However, one of the biggest mistakes is neglecting strength training, especially those exercises that involve multiple joints and large muscle groups, known as compound exercises. Exercises like squats, deadlifts, and bench press involve more muscles and therefore burn more calories during and after the workout. A study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research demonstrated that men who performed workouts with compound exercises had elevated caloric expenditure for up to 48 hours after the workout, a phenomenon known as excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. The secret lies in the impact these exercises have on your metabolism. When you train with compound exercises, you create micro-damage in the muscle fibers. To repair this damage, your body spends additional energy, even when you're resting. It's like having a furnace burning calories continuously. Additionally, strength training preserves and increases your muscle mass, a crucial factor especially after 40. Each pound of muscle you maintain or gain contributes to a faster metabolism, as muscle tissue is metabolically more active than fat tissue, burning more calories even when you're sleeping. To implement this correctly, include at least 2 to 3 weekly strength training sessions focused on compound exercises. Prioritize movements such as squats, deadlifts, bench press, rows, shoulder press, and pull-ups or lat pull-downs. Work with challenging loads that allow between 8 to 12 repetitions per set, maintaining perfect technique. A common mistake is believing that to lose fat, you should only train with light weights and many repetitions. In fact, training with moderate to heavy loads is essential to stimulate muscle preservation and growth during the weight loss process. Reason number 3. Not combating metabolic adaptations. You're on the right track. You've started doing your caloric deficit, exercising well, and your body will respond to this. But here comes a challenge that few men over 40 are prepared to face: metabolic adaptation. Your body is an incredibly efficient survival machine, designed to preserve energy whenever it perceives a reduction in caloric intake. When you maintain a caloric deficit for a few weeks, your organism begins to adapt, reducing your total energy expenditure. Unconsciously, you move less during the day, gesture less when speaking, and even the number of times you get up from the chair decreases. Physiologists call this non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT, and it can drop significantly during a diet. Furthermore, your body can also reduce the production of thyroid hormones, responsible for regulating your metabolism, and increase the production of hunger hormones like ghrelin. It's as if your body is waging a silent battle against your efforts to lose fat. To combat these metabolic adaptations, you need to be strategic. An effective approach is the implementation of diet breaks, periods of 1 to 2 weeks every 8 to 12 weeks of dieting, where you increase your calories to maintenance level. This helps to partially reset these metabolic adaptations, allowing you to continue losing fat when you return to the deficit. Another method is cyclic feeding, where you alternate days of higher caloric intake with days of lower intake, maintaining the same weekly average. For example, consuming more calories on strength training days and fewer on rest or cardio days. Physical activity also needs to be progressively adjusted. When you notice that your fat loss is stagnating, instead of reducing calories even further, try gradually increasing your activity level, either through more daily steps, additional low-intensity cardio sessions, or slightly increasing the volume of strength training. A common mistake is completely ignoring these adaptations and simply cutting more and more calories when progress stagnates, which only worsens the problem in the long run. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Having constant access to science-based information is what will make you progress with health in the long term in the bodybuilding world. Reason number 4, lack of consistency on weekends. I've observed this pattern countless times. Men who are extremely disciplined from Monday to Friday, following their diets to the letter, but who completely relax on weekends. This behavior severely sabotages any progress in fat loss, especially after 40. Many consume in 2 days the equivalent of 2 or 3 days of carefully built caloric deficit during the week. They think that 1 or 2 free days don't make a difference, but they forget that 2 days of the week are almost 30% of the days of the month. And mind you, I'm not saying you can't have free meals, but try not to tear down the wall you've built laboriously from Monday to Friday in just 2 days on Saturday and Sunday. What makes this problem particularly challenging for men over 40 is that, with age, metabolic flexibility tends to decrease. This means your body doesn't deal as efficiently with large variations in caloric intake or with occasional food excesses as when you were 25. To solve this problem, you can implement the concept of free meals instead of free days. 1 or 2 planned meals per week where you eat foods you like, but still maintain some control over portions, cause much less damage than 2 entire days without any structure. Another effective method is to establish clear limits even on weekends. For example, following your normal diet during breakfast and lunch, allowing only more flexibility at dinner when at social events. Reason number 5, going long periods without eating. A common misconception among men over 40 is the idea that skipping meals accelerates fat loss. Many believe that fewer meals draw fewer calories, jar more fat loss. However, this approach often produces the opposite effect to the desired one. Going long periods without eating, especially for men after 40, can trigger a series of counterproductive metabolic and hormonal responses. When you go many hours without feeding, your body can enter a state of energy conservation, reducing the metabolic rate to preserve resources. Additionally, prolonged periods of fasting can cause significant drops in energy and concentration, making it more difficult to maintain intensity in workouts and productivity at work. This often leads to a reduction in total daily caloric expenditure, compromising your caloric deficit. One of the most serious problems with this approach is that it can contribute to muscle mass loss. When you go many hours without ingesting proteins, especially in a caloric deficit, your body may resort to breaking down muscle tissue to obtain essential amino acids. After 40, muscle preservation should be an absolute priority, as it directly affects your basal metabolism. What many people don't realize is that going long periods without eating frequently leads to binge eating. You arrive at main meals so hungry that you end up consuming much larger portions than you would if you had made intermediate meals. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition showed that people who distributed their protein intake in at least 3 to 4 daily meals had higher muscle protein synthesis compared to those who concentrated the same amount of protein in just 1 or 2 meals. To correct this problem, establish a pattern of 3 to 5 daily meals, spaced every 3 to 5 hours. Each meal should contain a quality protein source to support muscle maintenance. Not all meals need to be large or elaborate. Small and nutritious snacks like yogurt with fruits, boiled eggs, or a protein shake can be excellent options to fill the intervals between main meals. A common mistake is confusing this recommendation with the need to eat constantly or every 2 hours. The important thing is to find an eating pattern that keeps your energy levels stable and reduces excessive hunger without you having to think about food all the time. Reason number 6, not controlling cortisol levels. A frequently underestimated factor in the difficulty of losing fat after 40 is the impact of chronic stress and elevated cortisol levels. Many men in this age group are at the peak of their professional and family responsibilities, facing pressures from all directions. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, the stress hormone, significantly favoring fat accumulation in the trunk, especially in the abdominal region. This happens because chronically elevated cortisol promotes the storage of visceral fat, the one that accumulates around internal organs and is associated with various health problems. In addition, elevated cortisol interferes with insulin sensitivity, which can lead to insulin resistance, a condition where your body needs to produce more insulin to process the same amount of glucose. Insulin, being a storage hormone, favors fat retention when at chronically elevated levels. What makes this problem particularly relevant for men over 40 is that, with aging, the body's ability to regulate cortisol may decrease, resulting in higher levels for more prolonged periods after stressful events. To effectively control your cortisol levels, it's essential to practice relaxation activities regularly. Meditation, yoga, tai chi, or simple walks in nature can significantly reduce stress levels. Just 10 to 20 minutes daily of these practices can make a substantial difference in your hormonal profile. Emotional state directly influences fat loss, not only through hormones, but also through the behaviors it induces. Under stress, we tend to make worse food choices, skip workouts, and sleep less, creating a vicious cycle that makes fat loss even more difficult. A common mistake is thinking that intense workouts are always the best option for losing fat. For men with high stress levels, very intense HIIT sessions or strength training can temporarily increase cortisol even more. In these cases, it may be more beneficial to alternate between more intense workouts and lower intensity sessions, such as walking or light swimming. Reason number 7, neglecting sleep. Ignoring sleep quality and quantity is possibly one of the most underestimated mistakes by men over 40 seeking to lose fat. Many sacrifice hours of sleep for work, entertainment, or even to fit in workouts without realizing the devastating impact this has on their body composition goals. Inadequate sleep drastically interferes with hunger hormones, specifically leptin and ghrelin. Leptin, responsible for signaling satiety, decreases with sleep deprivation, while ghrelin, which stimulates hunger, increases. This creates a scenario where you feel more hunger and less satiety, making it much more difficult to adhere to any eating plan. Additionally, as we mentioned earlier, insufficient sleep increases cortisol, which, as we explained, is directly associated with abdominal fat accumulation. A single night of poor sleep can raise your cortisol levels by up to 45%, as demonstrated in endocrinology studies. The ideal for men over 40 is to ensure 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. However, it's not just the number of hours that matters. but the quality of sleep. The deep sleep and REM phases are particularly important for hormonal and muscular recovery. To improve your sleep quality, try to practice sleep hygiene by not eating large meals before bed, not consuming caffeine after 3 p.m., not using screens up to 1 hour before going to bed, and sleeping in a completely dark environment with a good temperature, ideally between 64 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. A frequently neglected aspect is sleep regularity. Going to bed and waking up approximately at the same times every day, including weekends, helps regulate your circadian rhythm, improving sleep quality and optimizing your hormonal profile. A common mistake I see many people make is using alcohol as help to sleep. Although alcohol can facilitate initial falling asleep, it interferes with the deeper and more restorative phases of sleep, resulting in significantly inferior sleep quality. Reason number 8, low-protein diet. One of the most critical mistakes that men over 40 make when trying to lose fat is not consuming enough protein. Many indiscriminately reduce all macronutrients when entering a caloric deficit, without realizing the special role that protein plays in this process. Protein offers greater satiety per calorie than carbohydrates or fats. Studies show that protein-rich meals can reduce hunger hormone levels and increase satiety hormones like GLP-1 and PYY. This means you naturally tend to eat fewer calories when your diet is adequate in protein. Furthermore, protein is crucial for preserving your muscle mass during caloric deficit. For men over 40, who already face a natural tendency towards muscle loss, this becomes even more important. Each pound of muscle you preserve contributes to keeping your metabolism active. It also helps keep metabolism active through the higher thermic effect of food. Your body spends approximately 20 to 30% of protein calories just to digest and process it, compared to only 5 to 10% for carbohydrates and fats. This means that from 100 calories consumed in protein, your body uses up to 30 just in the digestive process. Eating a good amount of protein gives you optimized muscle building, especially when combined with adequate strength training. The more muscles, the more calories you burn even at rest. A 40-year-old man with good muscle mass can have a significantly higher basal metabolism than another with the same age and weight, but with less lean mass. The recommendation for men over 40 in caloric deficit is to consume between 0.7 to 1 grams of protein per pound of body weight. For a man weighing 176 pounds, this means approximately 120 to 176 grams of protein daily, distributed throughout meals. A common mistake is concentrating all protein in a single meal, usually dinner. Research shows that distributing protein in at least 3 to 4 meals throughout the day, with at least 25 to 30 grams per meal, optimizes muscle protein synthesis and lean mass preservation. High-quality protein sources include lean meats, poultry, fish, eggs, low-fat dairy products, legumes, and, for greater convenience, protein supplements such as whey protein. Variety is important, not only to ensure a complete amino acid profile, but also to provide different essential micronutrients. Now that you already know what you need to do to complete even more, we leave appearing right now on the screen a video showing 5 exercises that burn much more fat than the treadmill. Don't miss it. Thank you for watching so far, and may God bless you, my friend.